Greetings, this is the Grumpy Old Slan, and today I'm just going to show you how I redraw a map from a module. This here specifically is the cross section of the ship in S3 Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I've already drawn all the floor maps, so to see what the end result looks like, it's something like this. This is level 1, but I didn't think of recording this in all my brilliance, so I'm just going to do a recording of this map, and this is a bit of a lengthy process, so having an easier map to draw would maybe be a good idea when it takes less time. The first thing I want to do is draw a grid like we have here, so I can make sure everything lines up properly and is, maybe not perfectly to scale, but close enough so that we have a good idea what's what. I usually just copy the grid from another map just to save myself the trouble of redrawing it all every time. Now this map was fairly square, so what we're going to start doing is just delete a chunk from the bottom. So it's a bit closer in shape to what we want, and now we can see that the grid on the scan doesn't quite line up with the light gray grid, which is what I've drawn. So we need to scale it so things fit properly. So we have something that looks very close to the actual scanned lines. So if I deselect, you can see the light gray overlaps the black grid lines quite well. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but that might be an artifact of the scan. Also, these maps were hand-drawn, so it's not an unreasonable thing to forgive if there's one line ever so slightly out of alignment. So now I can get rid of all the extra lines I don't need. The more precisely we can do this, the early on, then the easier it'll be to get everything else lined up properly. So now we have our grid, which looks like this, and we gotta continue. I usually have a bunch of layers, so I have one for the scan, which I've locked so I don't move the scan by mistake. I have one for the grid, which I've just locked because I don't want to move the grid, I want it to stay there. Next we're going to be working on the walls. I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle, just roughly the right size. And I'm going to go back into artwork mode and zoom in. And now adjust it so it lines up as precisely as I can. And this is now what it looks like. Now I'm going to want to draw the floors, and I'm just going to copy the line, paste it in place, and bring it down to the proper level. Now I'm going to want one line that's halfway between these two grid lines. So I will select this, make a copy, just come here, unlock the grid. I'm going to select this one line, I'm going to select this one, I'm going to select this one grid line, and I'm going to use the alignment table to make sure this is exactly between the two. Lock the grid again so I don't move it by mistake, and keep going. again, I want this to be exactly between these two grid lines, so I'm going to unlock the grid, line things up, lock the grid again. We'll deal with the fact that this floor isn't across the entire, that's like the mezzanine thing, so we'll deal with that later. Right now I just want to place where all the floors are as closely as I can. Okay, so this is what our floors look like at the moment. Now we obviously have to put in the various walls and cut the floors where they need. So let's start at the top. So I've added some anchor points, and using the white arrow I should be able to select this part of the line. Here, let's make it clear, and delete it. Then all I need is to use the pen tool to draw the okay, what's next? Well, let's start by doing the verticals, and again I'm just gonna copy paste this line here and move it in place, and we can shorten it as needed. Just to see. Now the ship is supposed to be symmetrical because it's a circle, right? And so I'm just going to copy all of these lines, and then I'm going to mirror them on a vertical axis. And now I should be able to place them, and they will all line up where they should go, assuming the drawing is done correctly. Now if we look at it without the grid, we see, let's just get this out of the way, we should see all our verticals are done. Now what happens is we need to shorten some of them. Yeah. 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 Now we see some of the floors have dotted lines, we'll have to deal with that too. But I want to work on cutting these sections out. So maybe a bit hard to see, but I'm just adding anchor points on the edges. Delete this, and what we want is an arc. Yeah. I want to have a dotted line, a dashed line. Those dashes are a little long, so make them a bit shorter here. Yeah, I think that's good. And if we look at the map, it's actually there's a curved structure like this. And we have to shorten this line. Actually, we could, just remove these two lines. And continue this one down here. Like that. Do the same here. So it's starting to take shape. Okay, so I think we have all the walls. We've got to fix the dashed lines, and then we can start shading and adding what I like to call textures, the shadings, those trees, grasses, plants, the windows, and that door here. So all I do is take the white arrow, cut this section out, paste it back on, ask for a dashed line, and repeat the process for each floor. Now we don't want a dashed line. In fact, we want it to be black. We want to scale it so it's 50% of the height. We want this slide. I think what I want to do, just for consistency's sake, is to match the dashes on the dotted line as closely as I can. I haven't made the dashes on this side, so let's get that done now. This line should be dashed, or I can shorten it since I only need it starting here. Let's hide these, take care of the dashed lines properly this time. Yeah. It's amazing how sometimes you do something over and over again before realizing there's a better way. Once I've got one the right width, I could just duplicate it. Okay, where else do we need dashes? From here to here, here to here. Is that what I have on this side? No, I don't have those. Okay, so we know we need dashes starting here, going all the way. We do need to cut this one down, don't we? Yep. And we'll need to shade this in. So again, if you can avoid drawing something from scratch and copy pasting instead, it's often the best option. So I'm just going to move this rectangle here. So again, I'm just going to take an existing block, copy it, place it as precisely as I can, and then we want that staircase pattern to be here. Again, as precisely as we can place it. Now this is where we want to add some of the textures and colors to show, so this is hard to see, but the drop shoots are here and they're shaded a very, 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 very light gray. So hard to see on the scan, but I'll ask you guys to trust me on it. We then have some ramps that are here shaded a dark gray, and the lifts are shaded a medium gray. So actually that's like, so one thing that's not clear to me is where the door is for the lifts, because that's actually not indicated on the floor maps. So if I'm to grab, like, this is level 3 and I zoom in on the lift, you see they just show a dotted line outlining the lift. So is this an actual cage? I mean, this is a cargo hold, so I sort of assume it was one of those caged cargo elevators. And so I'm going to assume this is what it is. That's why there's a wall here. But if I compare the the cross section to the floor plans, there's that little bit of confusion there. And maybe I'll go back and fix that on the floor plans. Freight elevators often have multiple doors, like one on each side, so I can adjust what I feel is the easiest thing to do. But that'll be a project for later. Well, first of all, I'm going to copy the legend from this map. Just for consistency's sake, I'm going to try and scale things up so that the squares are the same size as the grid. We're not going to worry too much about the exact placement and all of that, but I do want to have these shades of gray here happening. And I'm just going to place it again as precisely as I can. And in fact, for this, I can hide everything except the textures in the grid. Now what happens is that as precise as you try to be, you can be a little bit off, as you can see. So I'm going to position this correctly, and I'm going to, now what I want to do is take all these, duplicate them here. Once we've done it once, over here, duplicate all this, position it, where do we, now we have our shaded ramps. How did they, now I should mention here that my textures, so the shading and the textures, I put above the grid but below the walls, and that gives me a little leeway because the thickness of the lines for the walls will help me. Those are the lifts. Let's just move this, it's getting confusing with what's below it. So they had the drop chutes light gray. They had, okay, the spiral staircase I don't think should be shaded. We can maybe use something else, a different texture than just a shade for that. The drop chutes should be light gray. Okay, so now we have all that shaded. We still need to deal with the spiral staircase. So this we're going to want a texture. I've already said I don't want to shade it. I find 3 different shades is enough when you print. Now if I remove the square, I should be able to make a pattern. Now, this is not perfect, but I'm not going to be filling out a whole width since that's the width of, this here is the width of the staircase. I think it'll do. I should be able to select these. Ask for the pattern. This is what it looks like. And it gives me a bit of a spirally staircase feel, if you will. So zooming in, we're seeing a small problem with the pattern. It's not quite the right size, but we have a solution. And what we'll do is we will not transform the object, but we're going to scale up the pattern. Spiral staircase is done. We're going to want to shade the water. I can't remember what color what shade I used in the others. We used a very, very dark gray or almost black. So for the water, what we really want to do is create a shape that's going to have the right pattern, well, the right shade, and that's the matching curves is always tricky, but it's manageable if you're careful. We want that little wavy line pattern. And since we're an illustrator and we can make it very regular, let's take advantage of that. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of circles. Now I'd like those lines to be pointy, so I'm just going to change the midder limit. Actually, no. So that I don't like this blunt tip. I'd like to have the pointy tips, but that means these circles have to be a little closer together. What does that look like? Not the greatest, I think. Yeah, we want some more circles. Yeah, one more circle. There's always a bit of trial and error for the more artistic type things. And we have our water. So, well, it's starting to take shape. Let's compare it to the scan. So we still have to add all the plants, little shape here. And that'll be that. And maybe the names on the side and top off, clean up the legend. Now there's a door here, which is why you sort of see, I'm not sure, like this, let me hide everything. There's some white, like in the line. In fact, I'm going to go swipe a door from one of the other maps. These are 10-foot squares, so that means the door is about 8 feet tall, which I believe is reasonable for a door. The idea here in general is to just suggest rather than outright try to draw exactly what, the grasses and other plants. Once we have a line like this, it's easy enough to duplicate it. Okay, so even though we have repetition, it's random enough that no one will really notice. And then when we add trees, it'll add some more variation here. Now let's see. Yeah, we need some more. Well, let's first of all take all this, duplicate it, move it all the way here, and flip it around. You got to be careful when you intend to move that or duplicate to actually do what it is you want to do and not remove something you want to keep. Okay, I think this will do. As I was saying earlier, taking shape, and once again I noticed I deleted something I actually wanted to keep. All right, so what do we have left to do? We've got to draw some trees, and we've got to draw these viewports and that door here. Yeah, so this door, I don't know what it is, because if you look on the map for level 6, we don't see a door there at all. So I'm just going to draw some viewports. And what I want is going to be a rectangle with rounded edges. And I'll replace this door with a viewport since, as I said, there's no door shown. And now some trees. In fact, we can just draw one and use, copy it, make some few modifications, and it'll be faster that way. And again, I'm going to use the pencil tool, which for a lot of stuff is not ideal, but if you want organic, randomy shapes is often not a bad thing. Now let's see what that looks like. Yeah, a bit on the messy side, but nothing that we can't correct for. And there we go, one palm tree. If we're lucky, no one's going to notice that a little piece of it is missing down here. So let's just select all of it, though not the grass. Let's group it. Scale it down a bit. And we don't need to scale it proportionally. This will also help things to not be too much the same. Varying group it. I'm just going to flip the head of it Okay, and now we have some trees. I don't think so. We just got to work on our legend. And type in this text. Okay, so we've done the legend now. Let's just hide. Yeah, there is a note here, sublevel 5 is what they call atmospheric ballast, and this level is inaccessible unless by some magical means like pass wall, wish, etc. And there we go. This is the starting point. And this is what we ended up with. So it's a little cleaner. This will print a little better, I hope. And this is how I draw a map using Illustrator. I'm not sure exactly how long this took. I didn't time myself, but I'll just put a little note down in text somewhere like down here how much time this all took. And I'm just now realizing I'm not quite done. I think this shape should be filled with some white. I think this makes it clearer that it's a ledge. It's just a little area that sticks out so the bridge can be reached. Okay, anything else we need to identify? No, I think we're good. And now we're done for real. Let's save this. Now, anyway, this has been the Grumpy Old Slan. I'll see you next time.